Everyone, welcome. Welcome to today's webinar. Today we'll be speaking about life enhancement and life enhancement program for renal patients. I really want to make sure that we recognize our partners who have contributed so much to our program, and without their help, we won't be able to provide a good value to renal patients. So first of all, thank you, Renal Warrior, Wilson Du, Renal Diet HQ, Mathea Ford. Thank you, Sarah Hawthorne, and My Balance and Wellness. Also, thanks to organization in UK, support group RPSG. A special thank you to Jennifer Zappola, a personal trainer based in New York. And also a special thank you to Elizabeth Conrady, and with her new practice based in San Francisco. So thanks all of you, and let's proceed with an exciting updates about the program. So hello, my name is Natalia Karpenko. I'm the founder at RenalMate, and also I manage coaching programming at Life Enhancement Program. What is very important, our mindset about approaching the LEP program for renal patients, providing holistic integrative health approach, providing patients connection with the body, mind, spirit, and support system. Our program consists of a number of things, including renal education, lifestyle education, lifestyle coaching, personal trainers, as well as the technologies that enables us to bring more efficiency, more data that empower patients to know where they at and help them to track their results. There is certainly a very large problem in the United States and the world overall that renal patients have a very high rate of hospitalization that has become burdened to patients themselves as well as the healthcare system overall. Hospitalization rate for renal patients, one of the highest. That's why we want to make sure we address the major problems in the life of renal patients and find the ways to manage the quality of their life. So one thing to point out that for many patients who facing the complexity of chronic kidney disease or ESRD management, there is a shock when patients get diagnosed and they face frustration, anxiety, even isolation and sense of hopelessness. That's why when we were building our program, we wanted to make sure we address every pillar of patient well-being and health, and design the program will allow patients improve overall quality of life as well as the renal management. Why did we build those programs? That's very simple. We're looking for patients like Carlo Rodriguez and also Wilson Du, who inspire us greatly to build programs that allow patients to make that decision. Willingness to choose life, willingness to fight, and willingness to inspire others by example. So I'm incredibly honored that in today's conversation, we will be able to hear your stories, and we will be able to highlight some of the successes we achieved through the program. So I'll share with you a brief overview of today's webinar. The webinar will be starting with highlighting the renal patient needs and the requests, what they really need in their care and what they're missing. The next part will be sharing with you the outcomes we achieved in our previous program for pre and post renal transplant patients. After this, we'll dive into the description about our program and the benefits. Mathea Ford, the renal dietitian, she will introduce renal diet and micronutrient management. The next speaker will be Sarah Hawthorne, presenting lifestyle management and adoption of the habits to improve quality of life and improve nutrition for renal patients. Jennifer Zappola, personal trainer, will be speaking about getting active and staying active for renal patients. And in the conclusion, Elizabeth Conrady, a certified health coach, will be speaking about stress management, sleep management, and overall self-care. In the conclusion, we'll invite Carlo Rodriguez, a patient who recently graduated from LEP, to share some of his reflections and share some of his ideas, how programs like this could be beneficial for other patients. We'll also conclude this conversation with a quick Q&A. Before we initiated LEP, Life Enhancement Program for renal patients, we reached out to renal community and we invited end-stage renal disease patients to answer our survey. We wanted to find out what are the greatest struggles for renal patients managing their care. And we have seen that patients experiencing difficulties managing their renal diet. They receive guidance at their clinic, but they still have difficulty managing their own nutrition. Phosphorus, potassium, albumin, and iron in a diet express the highest concerns. Also, many patients informed us that they are not really active, and more than 65% of them actually even not active in walking. They have difficulty managing their sleep, as well as they tend to be restless in the morning after they wake up. We want to address also some of their needs in stress management, since depression, anxiety are common issues for renal patients as well. And one of the important topics we wanted to cover with renal patients, building the support network. The support network will allow them to put effort on a daily basis and find the motivation in their daily life. What was really important for us to find out what are the true goals for renal patients. And we see that a lot of renal patients have a very similar goals in terms of if they're on dialysis and they're looking for the transplant, they want to make sure their health improved and they could be qualified for the transplant. Patients want to lose weight, want to manage their vitals. And some patients who might be just admitted to dialysis or even in pre-dialysis, they had a number of symptoms that significantly impact their quality of life. They feel low energy, they feel low motivation, and they want to manage those and improve. That's why we wanted to build the programs that allow them to do so. And one of the most important parts that all our health coaches just love, it's a part of motivation. What is truly drives patients to commit to the program like LEP for 2 months? And we can see that many patients share their motivation, whether those are the grandkids, whether they're looking for the transplant, whether they're looking for starting working out. So we're so grateful that patient came to us and provided their data and their feedback. Why do they need programs like LEP? So that's why we built the LEP program. And on today's conversation, we invited our coaches and educators to present the part of the coaching and education they provided to all the participants at LEP. Let me introduce you our first master coach, Wilson Du.
Welcome, everybody. Wanted to say hi and talk a little bit about, want to talk about goal setting, motivational, how to stay motivated, how to just pretty much stay active. And one of the biggest things about this whole thing is that it's really comes down to 3 things that I always ask people to do. And if you've been in the coaching program, I've always asked about what's your attitude, approach, and expectation to everything. Now, goal setting is very important. You have to know where you're headed in order for you to start to get going. And what that means is this, is that if you are looking to get active, physically active, if you're looking to change your diet, you have to plan that stuff out. What are you going to be doing for your workouts? What times are you going to be doing it? What days are you going to be doing it? Carve out that time, because without actually doing that, it's very difficult to stay on top of it. Same thing with your food. What you would like to do is that plan out your meals. How many meals are you going to eat per day? What are you going to eat Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday? And the more you plan, the easier it is to actually stick with it. And if you don't plan, there's an old saying that says that if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So that's really what it comes down to. When you plan these things out, it helps keep you on top of it, helps you stay accountable, helps you stay motivated. And so that even when you fall off a little bit, it's easy to get back in. And then the second part of that is after you plan, really think about that. Ask yourself these questions about what is your attitude towards this whole thing? What is your attitude towards your transformation? What is your attitude towards your sickness? What is your approach? Are you really planning this thing out? Are you thinking about this meticulously? And what is your expectation? What are you expecting to get out of it? Are you looking to lose weight? Are you looking to get stronger? Are you looking to be able to walk from 5 minutes to 6 minutes to 10 minutes to 15 minutes? What are you expecting out of it? So really have those concrete things. And when you think about these things, write it down. Just don't think about it. Write it down, because as soon as you write it down, now it becomes from a dream to a goal. And when you write it down and you put a goal and you put a timestamp to it, it increases your success rate by exponentially. So, that's the main thing. Just know where you're going. Really think about why you're doing all of this. And when you really think about why you're doing all this, who you're doing it for, if you're doing it for yourself, for your family, that's going to keep you motivated. And you have that written down. Anytime you fall off, you could always go back and review and see where you're at, and then get right back on track if you happen to do fall off. So that's really my whole bit, and that's what I've been doing for the past few years, and I've never looked back. Have I always been 100% on task? No, not at all. I've failed many times. However, I've succeeded many times, and that's why we're here today. So that's my whole bit about motivation, goals, and staying accountable to it.
Excellent. Wilson, will you be able to share some of the outcomes we achieved in our previous program? And
Oh yeah, absolutely. This is, I believe, our third or fourth program. And we started off with a handful of patients that we've coached. And then it slowly increased with each program that went on. And, some of the successes that we've seen through coaching has been phenomenal. We're looking at folks being able to be a little bit more mobile. You look at their metrics of stress has gone down. Their sleep has increased. Quality of life has been measurably, significantly better. So what you're looking at is what we do on these LEP programs is really look at it on a weekly basis. Where are we today? Where do we want to be, and how do we get there? And then what we do is we hold each other accountable, and we help you plan and through physical activities. Maybe that's increasing some of the physical activities, coming up with a plan for that, as well as your diet. And some folks, there was a particular person over in New Jersey, I remember, she became a beast and started off with barely doing physical activities to just rocking it and doing the elliptical 20-25 minutes, half an hour, and just to see the eyes pop up and the motivation there, that's how the transformation is made. And there's so many stories like this. We could probably talk about a dozen stories of different transformation, whether that be spiritually, mentally, physically, with a lot of the patients there. So I know that you have much more concrete data on that, Natalia. So if we ever do go over that, you can go over the specific data. But there is a lot of stories to tell and a lot of success stories.
Thank you so much, Wilson. And I appreciate all your tips and all the motivation you share. I would like to invite Mathea Ford. She's a registered dietitian, and Mathea Ford is the author of more than 15 books on Amazon. So great to have you on this conversation. And Mathea, you have done coaching and support for LEP participants. So we're looking forward to get some of your recommendations that you've seen that had the highest value in your coaching and education for renal patients.
Okay. So I'm going to talk about the best sources, a little bit about a couple of the different nutrients that are typically questions. The biggest one is protein management, because the protein in your diet your diet changes over time. But when you initially have been diagnosed with chronic kidney disease, as you progress from stage 1, 2, 3, all the way to 5 before dialysis, you slowly decrease the amount of protein that you eat. So you get at stages 3 to 5 with your EGFR less than 50, you're going anywhere from 0.6 to 0.75 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight per day. The amount of protein is about 7 grams in an ounce. So, you know, if you wanted to have 70 grams of protein, for example, somewhere in the middle, if you were 100 kilos, which would be a 220-pound person, then, you know, you may have, what did I say, 70? So you'd have 10 ounces of protein in that day. It's not all going to be from like regular just meat. We think of protein as being meat or eggs or beans, and there's protein in almost all foods, milks and cheeses, and also non like meat sources. Vegetarian sources obviously contain proteins. So what I hear some people do is to try to eliminate or reduce their protein significantly. But as you approach the need for dialysis, having a high albumin level, which you mentioned labs, is very important to helping you make that transition. So I would just encourage you that you manage your protein, but not over eat the protein. So for hemodialysis, it kind of switches on you. So all of a sudden you're losing some protein during dialysis or peritoneal dialysis, and you're needing more amounts of higher quality proteins because your body can now process those through dialysis, and it's not building up in your body. So you go from needing a half, 0.6 to 0.75 to almost double that amount. I would encourage you to make about half of your protein that you eat daily from high biological value protein, which is the meat and the eggs or cheese, those types of products. Although I do realize they have a decent amount of phosphorus in them, and that's a huge concern for people with dialysis. So I think the next slide is sodium. Oh, potassium. So potassium is something that people are usually concerned about. It's not as big a concern in the pre-dialysis stages. Your body's still managing potassium correctly. You might, if your potassium is high and you're not on dialysis, you may ask your doctor about medications. The blood pressure medications that are typically given can either be potassium sparing or potassium wasting. So if it's potassium sparing, that potentially is going to increase your potassium that's retained in your body. But really, you don't need to be concerned about the amount of potassium in foods unless you have hyperkalemia, which is would be indicated by your lab amounts. So I encourage you to be the least restrictive diet as possible. So don't restrict potassium unless you have hyperkalemia. And on hemodialysis, again, it's if you have hyperkalemia, a lot of people on hemodialysis may need to restrict potassium. But the bigger issue is usually phosphorus. So if you'll move to the next slide. Phosphorus, for people with CKD stages 3 to 5, you typically do not need to restrict it, because as you decrease the amount of protein you ate, say you ate before you ate maybe 120 grams of protein a day, and now you're down to 60 to 75, you're naturally reducing the amount of phosphorus that you're taking in. So phosphorus levels are going to naturally come down even if they are high, but that typically doesn't happen till closer to stage 5. But remember that phosphorus levels in the blood are difficult to control with diet alone. They're part of the whole CKD mineral bone disease process. So it can be affected by other medications, vitamin D that's in your food, and how much calcium and other things you take in. So phosphorus management is not something that is going to be a one thing solution, but typically one of the solutions, especially on hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis, is that you take your prescribed binders with your meals. So binders are not an AM or a PM. They're specifically for meals because they bind the phosphorus in the foods and allow that to exit your body without being absorbed. So if you're having problems with phosphorus, you're naturally going to have a little higher level because you're eating more protein with the hemodialysis and peritoneal dialysis because of your needs. So you're going to make sure you're taking your binders. You need to look for added phosphorus on labels. So when you're looking at labels, you're looking for the word PHOS in any sort of ingredient. So it may say potassium, phosphate in the ingredient list, and that indicates added phosphorus. You are going to absorb a significant amount of that added phosphorus, and up to 90% into your body, and it's obviously not listed on the nutrition label. So when you're looking at nutrition labels, this was something I talked about with almost everyone. Read for added phosphorus and choose a different food source for that. There are teas, for example, like pre-brewed teas that you can buy. One of them has added phosphorus, some of them don't. So always reading your labels and looking for that phos word. And then ensure you're getting a full session of dialysis. So don't shorten your sessions, or when you skip sessions, if you're only going 3 hours and the doctor recommends 4, make sure you're doing your full session of dialysis. It's really important. Your kidneys work in your body 24/7, but when you're on dialysis, you're getting 4 hours 3 times a week, and that's a significant reduction, and you need to give your body as much an opportunity to manage that as possible. So I think that's all my slides, Natalia. Oh,
we have a couple more.
You added some. Okay, you go back to the one about the nutrient labels, kind of that I was talking about. Yeah, just look for sodium, and then also you're reading your label for the word phos, and learn about portions, making sure that you understand how much is a portion of the food. Okay, next slide. So some tips. Understand all your prescriptions and how to take them. So I was talking about the phosphorus binders. I'm sure Wilson can attest to this, and Carlos can attest to this. Carlo can attest to this. Once you're on dialysis, you take a lot of medications. You need to manage them. You need to track them. I want to encourage you to make sure that you're taking them and understand what they do. Manage your related conditions as well as you can. So if you have diabetes, make sure you're managing your diabetes. Diabetes actually, as you progress from stage 3 to stage 5 to dialysis, your kidneys are a huge part of how your body processes insulin. And so as your kidneys become damaged, they don't process insulin as well. So it stays in your body a little longer, and it may feel like, oh, you're getting better because your diabetes is better. But what that's really indicating is that your kidneys are not working as well as they should. So just try to manage your related conditions, take your blood pressure medication, lower sodium diet. Don't use salt substitutes. They typically contain potassium. They're either sodium chloride or potassium chloride. So I'm talking about the white colored salt substitutes. So if you're using things like Mrs. Dash, or I have a garden kind of general substitute, garlic and herb, all those types of things are fine. But when you're trying to get that salty taste, it's something that you really just need to learn to live without, I guess, because it's not something you're gonna have to lower your sodium regardless at the minute that you know that you have this kidney disease. So do I have anything else?
I think we all set with your slides.
Okay. Thanks. I have loved being part of this group, and I appreciated all the people who participated. I think you gave as much to me as I hope I helped you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mathea. Just something to express our appreciation that renal diet is very complicated, and renal patients are struggling personalizing the renal diet. So with your input in this program and your work, you're providing an education to renal patients and pre-ESRD patients. It's been such a great success. We certainly will be sharing more testimonials when we get the final reports. Also, another thing to mention, Mathea Ford and Sarah Hawthorne, both of them have been involved with us building webinars related to renal nutrition. And we hope that with those webinars, we'll send them to you again. So maybe you can find more valuable information in details, how to make the right meals, how to eat proper renal diet. So let me introduce you right now to Sarah Hawthorne. And Sarah Hawthorne, she's a certified health coach. And Sarah Hawthorne been working with Mathea on LEP program, helping renal patients incorporating those adjustments and new regimens in their diet. So,
hi everyone.
Welcome.
Thank you. Nice to be here again.
Yeah, so Sarah, we are always happy to have you on our webinars, and we just love your vast topic about maximizing, minimizing, and prioritizing. So looking forward to hear this part of your presentation.
Yeah, so this one I'm just going to keep brief because I think we've heard it in past webinars before, but essentially the key to health is to maximize all the raw materials that the body needs to function and thrive. So that's like vitamins, minerals, proteins, fats, carbs, sunshine, and good hydration. We want to minimize the things that create a burden to the body, stress, toxins, infections, things like that. And then we want to prioritize the lifestyle choices that make us feel balanced and well. So that's a good support system around you, from a community to family and friends, from good sleep, good physical movement, time in nature, a purpose and meaning, whether it's through your work or through other things that you do in life. So when we put all those things together, that essentially our bodies will seek a state of well-being. That's the little formula I like to remind people of when things just feel overwhelming and a bit too complicated and we've got all these health conditions going on. We can really keep it simple, remind ourselves of that, and remember to prioritize those different aspects of our life. And that's going to be assisting our bodies more than, and our spirits and our mindsets more than we can ever imagine. I think, you know, when I was speaking with people in the Life Enhancement program, one of the big goals, of course, was weight loss. And, you know, there's a lot of other conditions that people have, not just kidney disease, but we've already mentioned diabetes and depression. So I wanted to share my key points today based sort of around those other factors. What I find is really helpful with weight loss and just balanced nutrition is eating set meals at set times. So sort of having a schedule for yourself based on what works best for your body. For example, an ideal food day might be having breakfast, a healthy protein and beneficial fat breakfast at 8 a.m. with good fiber. Then you might have a substantial lunch at 12 noon. You might have a light afternoon healthy snack around 4 o'clock. And then maybe dinner is like 7 to 8 p.m. Ideally, we want to avoid eating too much or at all between the 3 hours leading up to bedtime, because that's when we're not active. We're not going to burn off those calories. And if anything, we're going to store them as body fat. So carving out time, as Wilson said, on your schedule for things like eating healthy meals is really important. If you let your day get really crazy and busy, you're not going to be able to sit and enjoy a really good, substantial lunch, right? So block that lunch time off on your calendar so nothing else can get in the way of that time. Another thing is engage your senses. Like food, yes, you may not be able to add salt, so maybe food tastes a little bit more plain, but engage your senses and acknowledge the colors on your plate. It should be eating the rainbow, ideally, all those good antioxidants, which is part of an anti-inflammatory diet. You want to smell things, right? That's one way to enjoy food, is just to really smell things and get those salivary enzymes released so you can improve your digestion and your nutrient absorption. You want to just notice the textures in your mouth. Is something smooth and creamy, or is something crunchy and like full of fiber, right? Chewing your food thoroughly is one of the best ways to monitor your portions. So if we eat really quickly, we're going to overeat and recognize that we're too full and feel uncomfortable from that later on, and then probably store that as body fat. But if we actually chew our food, you realize it takes a lot longer to finish your meal than you've probably got time for. And that helps you to really allow the stomach to tell the brain, I've had enough. Like, you might get 3/4 of the way through your meal and be like, you know, I can save this for later. I'm done for now, because you're allowing that message to be sent, that communication between the stomach and the brain. So that's a great way for portion control, is just putting your cutlery down between bites, taking a deep breath, allowing yourself to be in a state of rest and digest versus fight and flight when we're eating. And just chew that food thoroughly. That could be your first goal with weight loss, is just chewing. And the other one is hydrate between meals. So a lot of people make the mistake of, I mean, look, if you're monitoring your fluid intake, we all need water to survive, right? There's a certain amount of water we need to drink on a daily basis. We need to be hydrated. Otherwise, we're going to be unhealthy. So using between meals as the time to hydrate versus during meals is a really good way to prevent inhibiting your digestion. The water competes with the food that we're eating when we drink too much water during mealtime. So sip on water gradually throughout the day between your meals instead, and that's a really great digestion tip. I find people find it really hard to count calories. Even I myself don't know how to do that, and I'm a health coach, so it would drive me nuts to have to think of how many calories is in each meal with all the different ingredients involved. And I also think it can be overwhelming, even just monitoring sodium, potassium, phosphorus, protein. So one of the things that I find really helpful is to just focus on food quality in general. So getting rid of those packaged processed foods, as we've talked about in previous webinars, and focusing on fresh, nutrient-dense whole foods from the farmer's market or a CSA box or your local health food store, or even a conventional supermarket. Looking to the produce section, the bulk section with all your whole grains, nuts and seeds and legumes, and then even say the butcher's counter, versus going inside the supermarket into the middle of the aisles where all the cereals with added sugar and the sodium laden canned and frozen foods are. So as a general guide, look at your plate and ideally aim for at least half the plate to be veggies. What I noticed with the LEP participants was that people are finding it hard to eat enough veggies. And they're also scared of eating veggies because of potassium levels and things like that. But really, we know that plants are a part of a balanced diet and add to our good health. So I say just like aim for roughly half the plate to be whatever veggies are on your safe list, right? The ones that may be lower in those nutrients that you're trying to monitor. And then a quarter of that plate can be something starchier. That's more of a carbohydrate source, an energy source. So that can be sweet root vegetables, legumes, whole grains, any kind of thing that's going to give you a little bit of a boost versus too much bread, too much pasta, too much of those things that we often turn to for our carb source, right? We want to get the cleanest, highest quality versions from nature. They're the least processed. And then the last quarter of the plate is your protein source. So again, as Mathea said, it could be animal proteins from the land and the sea, or from dairy products or eggs, or it could be plant-based proteins. So again, that's your legumes, your nuts and seeds, some whole grains, things like quinoa. So there's a lot of options there. And you're going to be cooking in good fats, right? Using high quality oils. Some of my favorites are ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil, or you're going to be dressing things like salads in extra virgin olive oils. That's how we get our good fat sources. And I just provided some ways to source good food here. It can be confusing to know where to get started and where to look. I think the best gold standard is to grow your own food. If you have a green thumb at all, you can have a little veggie patch in your backyard, or you can have some indoor pots just to grow herbs and things like that. But that way you can grow your own organic food in an affordable way. Or you can shop at a farmer's market, and they're spreading in popularity throughout the US. So try and research if there's one in your area. If there's not, you can always order a local CSA box where they deliver a box of good quality whole foods from a farm within your area, and it comes to your door, and you'll get whatever's seasonal and available at that time to be able to cook with in your kitchen. So it's called a CSA box, and you can also Google search what's available in your area. Otherwise, health food stores are ideal, but otherwise, if you've just got a typical supermarket, make the most of it and shop smart in that area, and avoid those packaged processed foods, going for the fresher options where possible. There's a couple of online resources. We can always send you those after, but if you want to write them down, Thrive Market, iHerb, and Vitacost are three of my favorites for getting things like nuts and seeds, or just any kind of bulk dried goods that are non-perishable for your kitchen pantry. Stocking up and having supplies on hand at all times is good. And then to source about toxins in food, looking at the environmental working groups, Clean 15 Dirty Dozen list is really helpful. You can Google search that. And Seafood Watch is a good one for identifying good quality seafood that's also healthy for your body and sustainable for the environment. I'm going to go over this quickly because I know we've got other participants waiting to talk, and I could talk about this all day, but depression is more common than we realize. And I think getting a good support network around you, from friends to family, colleagues, neighbors, and people within your community as a whole is really important. We don't want to go through these things and these feelings alone. So speaking out about it, it takes a lot of bravery, but it's definitely a big part of getting to the root cause and going through the healing process. But there's some nutritional components to depression as well as lifestyle, and I want you to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin D. If you're in treatment all the time and you're inside, you're not getting the sunshine. If you have an office job, you're definitely not getting sunshine exposure. Or if you live in certain parts of the world where the climate isn't ideal and you can't really get outside too often, again, we're going to get deficient with vitamin D. So the best source is gentle sun exposure on bare skin. I'm not talking about going and getting a sunburn in the middle of the summer's day at 12 noon. That would be a bit crazy, but if you start the morning by having your tea and coffee outside for 10 minutes, just getting that sun on your skin before you are fully dressed or before you put sunscreen on, that's a great way. You can always supplement if your levels are low with a good vitamin D, D3 product. Eating fatty fish, one of my favorites. Anti-inflammatory omega-3s are really important for brain health and mood, and reducing excess inflammation in the body, which is a big contributor to depression. So wild Alaskan salmon, sardines, anchovies. There's a long list. You can Google search of fish that are high in good fats. And again, the Seafood Watch will be a really good resource for you for that one, in terms of checking out which ones are safe to eat and which ones to keep in moderation, like maybe tuna because of mercury levels. So yeah, avoiding mercury and toxins, that was one of them. So the smaller fish are more likely to have less mercury levels, and then the bigger fish are more likely to have higher levels. So the Seafood Watch program will show you red ones to avoid, amber ones to eat in moderation, and then green ones that are safe to eat liberally. Adopt an anti-inflammatory diet with nutrient-dense whole foods, pretty much what we talked about with the balanced plate. So going for fresh vegetables, both raw and cooked, going for good fats like olive oil, eating fatty fish like salmon, having high-quality eggs, nuts and seeds. All of these things are whole foods that come from nature. They're not processed, and they're not necessarily going to sabotage our health. Everything in moderation and variety is key. And the balanced plate helps you eat a low glycemic diet to stabilize your blood sugar levels and prevent things like diabetes getting out of control or even happening in the first place. Lastly, don't forget to cut out foods you're allergic to or sensitive to. So often that's things like gluten or dairy or eggs. They're three of the top common ones. For other people, it's soy. Those foods create a lot of inflammation in the body and activate the immune system, which can wreak havoc on all of your systems and your health. And that also contributes to depression. So these are the key things to be mindful of. And B vitamins are one other thing. Let's have a look there. Animal sources of protein are a really good concentration of B vitamins. But also if you're vegan or vegetarian, leafy greens, nuts and seeds and legumes are also sufficient sources. Lastly, I've got the Circle of Life activity for you to do on your own at home. We can give you this after the webinar, but this is an example of it right here. This is called primary food. It's the other aspects of life outside of nutrition. Nutrition is secondary food. But first we want to make sure that we're getting joy in our lives. We have spiritual and creative outlets. We're in charge of our career and finances and life's purpose, right? Meaning and doing things that are productive work-wise. We're on top of our health and our physical activity with home cooking and moving our bodies on a daily basis. So this is an activity you can do to see what area of your life is out of balance and what goals you can set around that to boost it. So a big part of depression is having things in life that are lacking, compartments of our life that are lacking. So for you, if that's relationships and your health, they're the two things you then need to set goals around to improve so that you can fill up your cup and feel so much better and hopefully get rid of some of those sad, dark feelings. So I hope that was a good summary. And there's more to come, of course, in future webinars, but for now we'll keep it at that. And congratulations to everyone who completed the program. It was a pleasure working with you, and it's just such a great team of coaches here to provide support. So it's an honor to be part of the whole experience.
Thank you, Sarah, so much. And we're certainly looking forward to get this assignment out. It seems so much fun taking the Circle of Life. And yeah, let's try it.
It's a good one.
Thanks so much. And I would like to invite our fourth speaker for today, Jennifer Zappola. And I believe Jennifer is here. Hello.
Yes, I am here.
Perfect. Yeah, so Jennifer, first of all, I want to make sure that we acknowledge that you are a proud kidney organ donor and you are a personal trainer who been helping us for a number of cohorts with LEP kidney. So thank you so much for joining today's webinars and providing coaching, education, support for LEP kidney patients. So great to have you on this conversation.
Great, thank you. So yes, kidney donor, I will be celebrating my 1-year anniversary with my mother next month, August 14th. And she's doing fantastic. So yes, I am very proud of that and proud of her amongst that. So this is familiar with what we've been talking about in regard to patients on dialysis and so forth. So what I'm about to say is not anything that hasn't been said before. And you can go to that next slide, which has patients on it. And because I think this is my number one core competencies that I talk to a lot of my clients with, and even those that are going through with kidney disease on dialysis or whatever, we still have to think about things and ways to help ourselves. And I believe Wilson touched upon it, Mathea touched upon it, everybody touched upon a little bit of all these core values. And number one, my first and foremost is patience. And I think that's the one thing that we have the most difficult thing doing is keeping patience or having patience, no matter what it is. If it's a fitness journey, if it's waiting for things to happen, we have to have them. And by doing that, we put ourselves in a position for success because we allow ourselves to move forward in a more organic and general way. And we don't rush things. We don't get impatient and rush things to happen. By having patience, things will come your way and you will understand things in a much methodic way to getting to where we need to go. So that's number one. Have patience. Things will happen. We just need to take a step back, take a deep breath, and move forward. The second thing that I talk to clients about is goals, short-term and long-term goals. And so if a client, in this particular case, if your short-term goal is I'm going to exercise, that's great. But the long-term goal would be by this date, I want to have this accomplished. So we want to make sure we have a difference between our short-term goals and our long-term goals, because we don't want to put ourselves in a position to where we will not succeed. We want to put ourselves in a position to where we will succeed. So think of the short-term goals of I'm going to get up, I'm going to exercise. That's fantastic. Then put the date on it, put a goal on it, and let's hit it. And so that would be by such and such date, I'm going to walk around the block. And then by the next goal, once you achieve that, your next goal, and Wilson has done this, and he is prime example of it. The next goal is I'm going to walk around the block 2 times, etc. The third thing is planning, and Wilson touched upon this as well. Planning without a plan, it's very difficult to be successful. You have to have a plan of what you're going to do, and that is planning your weekly menu, planning your workouts, planning your exercises, and then also planning you time. I know your time is short, especially if you are on dialysis. You're sitting there for 3 days a week, 4 hours at a time. And so when it comes to you time, maybe that is your you time. I know Wilson likes to sing karaoke, from what I understand, at his dialysis sessions. But you need to plan you time, because that is valuable to your success. It's valuable for you to think about what you want to accomplish. It's valuable to you in any of these cases that we're talking about, for you to realize what you're going through and to process that. So make sure you do plan everything out. I guarantee you, if you do plan your days, your weeks, your meals, your menus, your workouts, and you time, that will put you in a position to be successful. And the last one, my core competency is strength of character. Believe it or not, when things do get tough and when you don't think you have it in you, you do have it in you. You are stronger than you think. You have the motivation. You have it in you to succeed. You have to dig deeper. You have to go deeper. And when things get really tough, that's when you need to push just that little bit more. I was with a client today, and we did 4 sets of exercises of this particular thing. And he said, you know what? If I didn't have you today, I would have stopped after that 3rd one, and I wouldn't have never gone through to the 4th one, because I just would have said, okay, that was enough. I did enough. But it was that 4th time that we went through, that we pushed through that little bit of that barrier. And he said, I feel great. Thank you for doing that. That's when you have to just say to yourself, I can do it. And some days will be tougher than others. Some days will be easier than others. But know that you have the strength. It's deep down inside of you to do it. That's strength of character. If you follow all these 4 core competencies, I guarantee you will be successful in everything and anything that you do in life. So if that's anything I can leave you with, is be true to yourself, be you, and you can do this. I was super happy to be a part of this, and I can't think enough on how my journey of finding Wilson and Natalia and being a part of this. This has been an amazing experience, and I hope that I have given you some help into succeeding. And I wish everybody the best of luck, and hope to be on future programs just like this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jen. Such a pleasure to have you. Our next presenter, Elizabeth Conrady. Elizabeth Conrady, she based in San Francisco. Hi, Elizabeth. How are you doing today?
Hello, very well. I'm delighted to be here.
So thank you again for participating in today's program. So we're looking forward to learn about your recommendations, how patients can improve quality of their lives through stress and sleep management.
Yes, okay. So I'm delighted to be here again, and I'm going to spend the next few minutes sharing some tips with you on, as Natalia said, on sleep, on stress, and then on self-care. So Natalia, do I advance the slides myself, or do you?
I'll do it for you. So would you be able to present yourself and share your background, since this is your first time joining our webinar?
Oh, sure, yes. So as Natalia mentioned, I recently completed a program through Duke Integrative Medicine to become an integrative health coach. And my background before that, I worked in the healthcare industry for many years, mostly in marketing and public relations roles. But within that, it's really helping to share health education and health inspiration. So I've now just taken that to a whole new level. And my personal passion and purpose is really to help empower people to live their healthiest, happiest, best life through preventative-based and healing-based lifestyle habits. So really helping people with behavior change and just helping people realize that, once you create a new habit, it's, it comes naturally. So that's my background. Great. Okay. So if we move on to one more slide. Great. Okay. So we'll start off with sleep tips for effective sleep. So I'm going to start off by reading a quote. And the quote is, it's a very powerful quote by Matt Walker, who's a professor of neuroscience and psychology at UC Berkeley. He says, sleep is the single most effective thing we can do to reset our brain and body health every day. Sleep is a non-negotiable biological necessity. And this really is such a powerful quote, because there is a tremendous amount of research that suggests that sleep really is the most important thing you can do for your overall health. And it affects every single system in your body and every single cell in your body, every organ, every cell. If you think about it, you can go, say, 24 hours without exercise and you'll be fine. And most people can go 24 hours without eating, as long as you have water. Most people can go 24 hours without any food and they'll also be fine. But think about how awful you feel if you go a full 24 hours without sleep. That's just an example of how critical it is for our bodies. And an interesting fact to share is that human beings are the only species on Earth that deliberately deprive themselves of sleep. So I found that fascinating when I read that. It makes a lot of sense. So the good news is that there's also a tremendous amount of research and easy things we can do to help us get that proper sleep that is so important. And according to Matt Walker, who's the sleep scientist at UC Berkeley, and he also runs a sleep lab at UC Berkeley, he says the single most important thing you can do is to stay on a regular sleep schedule. So that means going to bed and waking up at the same time every day, even on the weekends. And also, if you can aim for somewhere between 7 to 9 hours of sleep each night, that is the ideal for most people. Also, sleeping in accordance to your circadian rhythm, if that's possible. So not only does our brain have a circadian rhythm for our sleep, but every cell in our body, every organ, every system, every cell also has a circadian rhythm. So if we're able to sleep when it's dark out and wake up with the daylight and still get that 7 to 9 hours, that's most effective for us. And in order to help sync our body to that circadian rhythm is getting exposure to some morning sunlight. So as one of the previous speakers, I think it might have been Sarah or one of the others, mentioned about going outside and getting some sunlight, getting that vitamin D. So if, in addition to all the benefits, the healthy benefits of vitamin D, it also, that morning sun, even if it's just for 10 minutes, really helps get your body in sync with its natural circadian rhythm, and you'll sleep much sounder at night, and you'll really get that restorative sleep that your body needs. The next tip that was really helpful for getting into that deep sleep is keeping your bedroom cool. So as we sleep, when we fall asleep, our body temperature drops, and all of our systems in our body slow down because they're restoring our our body is, all the cells, all the organs, everything is healing and regenerating itself. And if you are sleeping with the temperature cooler, then your body is better able to do that. Another tip is to avoid large meals late in the evening. And I know some of these have been mentioned by previous speakers on this call, so I just like to reiterate it because they are so important. That this is another one that's important, keeping your meals in, the same thing, in line with your circadian rhythm. Our digestive fire, our body is most able to digest food around noontime. So actually when the sun is at its peak is when our body is most able to digest food. And that's why in certain cultures around the world, they eat their largest meal in the middle of the day. And then as it becomes later in the day and you have dinner, it's usually preferable to have a smaller meal, something easier to digest in the evening, and not too close to bedtime. Also, if you're digesting food when you go to bed, then that's taking a lot of energy away from the restorative processes. So when you're sleeping, your body is trying to restore itself. But if instead your body is digesting a meal, then you're not really getting that restorative sleep. Another tip related to this is avoiding caffeine and alcohol late in the afternoon and the evening, because both of these can affect the ability to have restorative sleep at night. And the next slide. Great. Again, which many of you may be aware of, is to limit blue light exposure. So flat screens, TVs, smartphones, iPads, etc., too late in the evening, because the blue light suppresses our melatonin, and our melatonin is the hormone that we have. It's a chemical in our brain that signals our bodies for sleep and for restorative sleep. And if we are exposed to blue light late in the night, then it tricks our body and our brain into thinking that it's daytime. And so the body thinks, oh, it's not time for restorative sleep, it's time to be awake. And so that can affect your circadian rhythm and affects your ability to get great quality sleep. And then another really enjoyable suggestion is to enjoy a relaxing bedtime routine early in the evening before you go to bed. And this sort of signals to your body, okay, it's time to wind down from the stresses of the day, and tells your body, okay, we're going to be going to sleep soon. And so I had listed some examples, maybe a hot bath, some herbal tea, lavender. The scent of lavender has been shown to help relax the body and prepare it for sleep. Maybe reading a book, but again, like a physical book that you hold, not necessarily a book on a screen that emits blue light. Maybe a sleep meditation, or maybe journaling. All of those may help relax the mind and prepare you for sleep. And then what happens if you can't sleep? Maybe you can't fall asleep, or you wake up in the middle of the night. So not to worry. If you find yourself awake after you've been in bed for about 20 or 30 minutes and you just can't fall asleep, a lot of the sleep experts recommend that you actually get up and do a relaxing activity, something quiet. Don't turn on too many bright lights or anything, but maybe, again, getting that book and reading that book. And that oftentimes will help your eyes feel tired again, and oftentimes not so soon after, you'll start to feel sleepy, and then you can go back to sleep. Although important to note, no blue screens if you find yourself awake in the middle of the night. It's not the time to check your iPhone. So that's important to remember. And for further information on some additional sleep information, inspiration, and tips, there's a fantastic TED Talk called Sleep is Your Superpower, and it's by Matt Walker, who I mentioned earlier. And he also has a book out called Why We Sleep, which is also fascinating if you're interested in learning more about sleep management. Okay, so moving on to the next slide, we'll transition to stress management. So again, I'm going to start off with a quote, another powerful quote. Can changing how you think about stress make you healthier? The science, this is the surprising science, says yes. When you change your mind about stress, you change your body's response to stress. And this really surprised me when I first heard about it. There's a health psychologist. This quote is actually by a health psychologist. Her name is Kelly McGonigal, and she has researched and shared several studies that show actually how you think about stress actually really impacts what your body, the physiology happening in your body, it actually changes that. So if you're in a stressful situation and you feel like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, this is really, you know, harmful to me, and you're worried that you're so stressed out, and you realize that it's, you know, stress is not healthy. We hear all the time stress is unhealthy. That thought also is unhealthy. So she's been able to prove that when people look at stress as, it's not always bad. Sometimes stress is good. Sometimes we need that a little additional stress to get us motivated, to prepare us to take action. Maybe, you know, we have a test coming up and that stress helps us really study and prepare for it, or we're going to run a race, and that stress really gives us energy so that our body has energy to run. So that's really fascinating. So I'm going to share some stress resilience strategies with you. And the first thing is, how do you think about stress? If you ask yourself that question. And often when we take a new perspective about stress, the goal is not to remove all stress in our life, because that's not realistic. But instead, it's making you better at stress. And, you know, it's paying attention to that, and it's helping you become more stress resilient. And some other ways that can help with this is a meditation practice and mindfulness. So besides sleeping, meditation has been shown to be one of the most important tools for stress resilience. And just to give a quick brief overview of what I mean by meditation, it can be as simple as 5 minutes a day, just sitting in a quiet place and just focusing on your breath. And it's as simple as that. So just noticing as you're taking a deep breath in, you know, through your nose, and paying attention to holding the breath for a few seconds, and then slowly exhaling the breath and repeating that a few times. And as you're doing that, really focusing on the breath, and your mind will wander. Everybody's mind wanders. And so as your mind wanders, you catch it. And that's great that you caught it. And then you just simply let that thought go and bring it back to focusing on the breath. And it's been shown that doing that for just 5 minutes a day, just set your alarm for 5 minutes. Doing that for just 5 minutes a day can really impact how resilient you are to stress throughout the entire day, which is really fascinating. And also that is connected to mindfulness, which is the next bullet. Mindfulness is defined as non-judgmental awareness of our thoughts in the present moment. So it's really being aware of what we're thinking and not judging it. It's just, it is what it is. Our thoughts are what they are. And this is so connected to meditation, because when you're meditating, you're really learning how to recognize those thoughts that we have in our head. It's estimated that we have 60,000 thoughts a day in our head, which is a lot. And oftentimes we're just going through our day having all these thoughts, and we don't separate ourselves from these thoughts. And so through a meditation practice and mindfulness, we can actually stop and recognize our thoughts throughout the day. Other times of the day when we're having a thought, we can stop and we can ask ourselves, this thought I'm having, is this helpful for me? Does this thought feel good? Or is this a fear-based thought? And is this not helpful? And is this not even true? It's just a thought. Just because you're having the thought doesn't mean it's true. And you're in complete control to let go of that thought. And so that's really, both of those practices are just very powerful ways of becoming stress resilient. And so that brings us to our next bullet, which is also another really significant again, one of the most significant things we can do in becoming stress resilient is acts of kindness. And then I added in gratitude and caring for others. So when we are kind to another person or an animal, it doesn't even matter how big or small it is. Anytime we do an act of kindness to another person, the person who's doing the kind act actually gets more of a benefit than the recipient. And that is really huge as well. And also a lot of this, it's also related, it's related to sleep, of course. If you're not as stressed, you'll sleep better. So all of these are interconnected. But there's been a lot of research on that. Also, whenever you're doing an act of kindness to another person, and it could be as simple as smiling at a stranger who looks sad, it could be that simple. And when we do an act of kindness, it increases our oxytocin. And our oxytocin, it's a hormone. It's a feel-good hormone. It makes us feel good. And that naturally reduces the stress that we're feeling. And in addition, it's a cardioprotective hormone. So your heart has receptors for this hormone, and oxytocin helps the heart cells regenerate and heal from any stress-induced damage. So that's also huge. So, and it's also related to how we think about stress, because even if we're going through a stressful situation or a stressful time, just knowing that our body has the ability to heal itself of that stress, that's pretty significant too. And as we keep that in mind, that helps us feel less stressful. And moving on, saying no, this is one of my favorite ones, which sometimes takes a little bit of time to learn, but it's so powerful, is we have so many demands on us and so many requests, so many different, people are asking us, we're pulled in many different directions throughout the day, and that could become very stressful. And so learning, when all these requests come in, realizing, what do I have energy for, and what do I want to do, and what do I feel like I want to do versus I feel like I should do. And when you're able to realize, what, I don't want to do that particular thing, or I don't want to accept that invitation, or I really don't want to do something, then just very kindly, confidently saying no, saying thank you for the offer, thank you for the invitation, but no, I'm not able to do it now. And that is another tip for managing stress. And then just to reiterate what some of the other coaches and speakers on this call have already said, good health habits, restorative sleep, nourishing foods, daily exercise, those all play a huge role in stress management. And for further information, I have listed another TED Talk. It's How to Make Stress Your Friend, TED Global 2013, and the link is on the slide there for you as well. And the next slide is effective tips for self-care management. So I have one more quote to share with you, another powerful quote. Self-care is defined as deliberately taking care of your well-being through restorative activities. And this particular quote is by Susanna Winters, and she also gave a TED Talk, and the link is going to be to her talk on the next slide. And this is something else that's very much related to stress management and sleep, of course. But having self-care rituals can play a really significant role in our well-being and our health and our healing and our stress resilience. And so just paying attention to this and asking ourselves, like, what do you do for self-care? A lot of people don't really even think about self-care, but it's such an important part of our lives. It makes life flow. It just makes us feel lighter and feel happier and clearer and less stressed overall. And so asking, we're always taking care of everyone else and, taking care of everyone, in our jobs and in our families. And so it's, how do you take care of yourself? And one way to really start this as a first step is perhaps, I invite you to write in a self-care journal and just increase your awareness of what are you doing for yourself for self-care? And moving on to the next bullet, I think that one of the simple and most important things you can do for your own self-care is to speak kindly to yourself always, and be kind to yourself and treat yourself with kindness and love always. Oftentimes we have our critical thoughts in our heads, and if we can turn those around and treat ourselves like we would treat our very best friend or the person we love the most in this world, if we treat ourselves that way. And the moments when this is the most important is in moments that you let yourself down. If there's ever a moment that you disappoint yourself and you're disappointed and you're upset at yourself, why did I do that? How did I miss that opportunity? How did I miss that meeting? Whatever it is, those are the moments to catch and to just speak so kindly to yourself and say, we're doing the best we can. We're learning from our experience and it's okay. We're fine. We're going to be fine. So I think that if I had to just have one big takeaway, I think that is the most important aspect for self-care. However, there's many others. Another suggestion is having rituals throughout your day. So morning rituals, midday rituals, and evening rituals, which you can incorporate in your day. And it actually makes your day so much more enjoyable. So I just listed a few examples of morning rituals to really help you ease into your day. Some examples are, so this actually sets the tone. When you have a morning ritual, morning rituals really set the tone for how your day is going to go, and you set the intention for how you'd like your day to go. So some examples might be you wake up and you have maybe drink some warm lemon water, which is relaxing and hydrating for your body, gently wakes it up. Maybe some, that 5 minutes of meditation, maybe incorporating it right after you wake up in the first few minutes, or some light movement, maybe a few yoga poses. It doesn't have to be a lot, maybe, 15 minutes of some easy yoga poses, or just stretches, just some nice, relaxing, invigorating stretches. Having affirmations and intentions again for your day, journaling, those are all some examples for your morning rituals. And then if we move on to the next slide, afternoon rituals. So this is the midday transition. So this is another time, oftentimes we're so busy in our day in the afternoon, but if we could just take a few moments to ourselves, maybe every day at 3 o'clock, you step outside and take a minute or, 3 minutes and take some fresh air or a walk around the block, or maybe some breathing exercises. There's a lot of videos on YouTube where you can do a 5-minute breathing exercise that really, helps you transition, prepare for the rest of your day. Going for a walk, again, around the block, or if you're close to a park, so in nature is even, more ideal if it's possible. Taking a nap, sometimes just taking a 30-minute nap can really help you feel better throughout your day. Okay, and then evening rituals. So this really helps you prepare for sleep. So examples are, as was mentioned before, eating a small dinner, maybe ideally before 8 p.m. Some other examples of evening rituals, there were some examples, I believe, on the sleep slide a few slides ago. So here's some additional examples. Would be, rinsing the body before bed. Oftentimes we take our shower or our bath in the morning, but sometimes if we just, jump in the shower or have a relaxing hot bath, or just rinse away the day, rinse away the worries and the stresses of the day. It can be very symbolic as well and prepare the body for sleep. Washing your face, turning off all devices. And then another tip that you may find relaxing is getting some oil, maybe some almond oil or sesame seed oil or even coconut oil, and just putting some oil, like doing a massage on your head or a little, on your ears or your feet, can really help relax you. And then consistently going to bed by 10 o'clock if possible is a ideal suggestion if that's possible. And so to wrap up, for some further information, I invite you to watch a short, this one's about 10 minutes. It's another TED Talk by Susanna Winters. She's the person I quoted on the slide before, and she has a TED Talk that talks about self-care, what it really is. So that wraps up my 3 topics that I shared with you, and thank you so much for inviting me to be part of this program. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and look forward for what's to come.
Thank you so much, Elizabeth. And honestly, it's quite complicated and to explain stress, sleep management, and self-care only like in 10-15 minutes. But you've done it wonderfully, and you've been coaching LEP patients for weeks and weeks on those topics. So that's why I think the best way to actually show the appreciation of the patients and what they actually took from LEP program would be inviting one of the graduates of LEP. So allow me to introduce you to Carlo Rodriguez. Hello, Carlo.
Hello.
Yeah, so thanks so much for joining. We really appreciate your willingness to join this webinar. And I really like that fan behind you. It seems like you're in a nice, fresh room, and you know, fresh air is so important.
Yeah, it's really hot here in California. So
tell us,
cool.
Where are you based? And tell us a little bit more about yourself. What's your diagnosis? How did you find about LEP?
So yeah, like Natalia mentioned, my name is Carlo Rodriguez. I'm sure a lot of you here know who I am. I am a 31-year-old, currently on dialysis. I was diagnosed with Poon-Belly syndrome, which caused me to have the kidney failure. I did have a kidney transplant. It was back in 2009 when I received my first kidney transplant. I am back on dialysis now for about 2 years now. And that first kidney transplant lasted me about 8 years, roughly, till I unfortunately had to start dialysis again. Now, I decided to join the program. I did find out about the program through Instagram. I was actually following Renal Warrior on there, and he, introduced me to this program through there. And I wanted to find a method for physical strength and a method to just help myself with eating better, healthier choices. I also wanted to find a source with a community to kind of know that, I'm not the only one on this boat. There's other people that are unfortunately, dealing with the daily things that I'm dealing with. Just to know that, I'm not alone. So that's another thing. And I wanted to find more positivity. I know there's a lot of people out there who are very positive, and, I want to kind of pick my, their brain and kind of motivate myself to stay positive and know that there is a lot of hope at the end of the tunnel. So that's another reason. The goals I wanted to do is to inspire others, because I believe that motivation is key, support is key, and people need that who have chronic illnesses. Also, my expectations for the program were very high to start. I was very pumped up about the program because of the amazing things that, I read about it, just looking into it. I was very, very motivated. I got very motivated through speaking with the coaches, a lot of things that I was able to kind of put in my daily life, from, little things that I learned from recipes to just physical activity, stuff like that I really incorporated into my daily life. Because of the program, the amazing things I read really, like I said, pumped me up. I was ready for the challenge mentally. I was locked in. Mentally I was ready to go, and then it was just about getting my body at the same level of my brain, just kind of, with the physical activity and just getting stronger. So that was another of my motivations joining the program. The education I got from this program was, like I said, the great physical activity, exercises, kind of mental, stuff that, as Elizabeth was mentioning, kind of just to, keep my head in the game. That's another thing that, like I said, I really worked on and have been working on. I was also giving, different recipes, meals. Like I said, it has not been easy. I'm not, perfect. I'm nowhere near perfect. It's a work in progress, and there's plenty of work to be done. But I just look forward to continuing to, use a lot of these tools moving forward to my daily life. I feel very, very motivated. I feel like this is just the beginning of a long road of, getting myself, physically stronger, mentally. Everything is just a work in progress as I move forward. And I feel very, very blessed and lucky to have been part of this program. And I look forward to, working with Natalia, and anybody else that might need some of my assistance to moving forward. My goal, my inspirations have always been to motivate others, because I know there's a lot of people out there that are sadly, in the same boat or as I was or am, where they're not motivated. They feel kind of like they're in a slump. And, I know growing up, I've always dealt with health issues, and it's been, hard. And, now with social media and all these resources, it's really nice to be able to connect with people and help people that might not have, the support at home, or, stuff like that. Because I know, like I said earlier, the support is key. It's really key to, wanting to live, wanting to move forward, wanting to do the things that you're asked to do by your doctors, by, all the experts that really have you doing the things that, are needed for you to have a healthier quality of life. So if you don't have the support, it's really hard to keep up with what you're supposed to do. So I know that, giving support and helping people is really something that I inspire. I'm hoping to do, and I'm looking forward to doing that. And to kind of, wrap this up, I will definitely be recommending this program to as much people as I could possibly reach out to. I know on Facebook, I'm following a couple websites where people are, dealing with kidney disease, and they kind of post their daily struggles with diets, physical activity, symptoms, medications. So, I would love to reach out and post the information of this program on there to hopefully, get some people on board and, get them the help that's needed. Because like I said, a lot of these people that I read some of their posts on there, it's just, they're really, really struggling with a lot of the things that this program provides on helping. So, I'm sure they will benefit a lot from the program if they were to join, or, take that step. So I really do plan on sharing this program with as much people as possible. And, I would like to really thank everybody involved, all the coaches, Natalia, everyone involved in this program, for putting in the time, for putting in your input on everything you guys have done, every single one of you on this call, everybody, else that, might not be on here, but has helped in one way or another. I really want to thank you all from the bottom of my heart.
Carla, thank you so much. Certainly, we really appreciate everything you said about our program. And I couldn't agree with you more that coaches in this program just done incredible work, because first of all, the support system is so important. And for us, it's very important to tailor education, tailor coaching, and provide resources that allow people to find motivation in their daily life. And you've been such a great example of a patient who had struggles, had difficulties, and still facing those, but finding those ways of self-care, stress management, nutrition management, finding the ways how to manage it. So we're certainly looking forward to have you in our future programs. And thanks again for showing up. We really appreciate that you finding this time and your kind words. Thanks.
All right, well, thank you so much.
So let me update you about a few next things to look up for LEP and RenalMate. So we're launching podcast. We've been holding on a podcast, finishing our LEP, and finally we're graduating this cohort. That's why we're launching our kidney health interview. And we interviewed a number of great speakers. So you can tune in on a kidney health podcast on Spotify, and also podcast on iTunes. We'll be launching the video podcast as well, so all of you will receive email and invitation on official launch. The next thing that we'll be sending the survey, if you're interested to join in LEP in the future, have any questions to our coaches, want to get in touch with them, send us a request or respond to the survey, and we'll put you in connection with them. The next part, we are providing resources. So this webinar, as well as additional webinars we have, will be posted on a blog at RenalMate.com. And also there are some recipes and guidance. Also, in addition, Mathea Ford at Renal HQ, she's providing a great resources you can follow. Any requests, coaching@livzo.com. The last part of our conversation today is the Q&A. And some of you submitted questions earlier through social media. So we want to address a couple of those questions today. So the first question was about, is it safe to exercise? And is it safe to exercise for my fistula? Would be great if we can hear from Wilson, Jennifer, and Carlo on this regards. So Wilson, would you like to start?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me? Okay. So yeah, that is a big question. Can you exercise while on dialysis? And the short answer is yes, absolutely. You can definitely exercise while on dialysis, but you really have to listen to your body. You have to know how far you can push it before you need to stop. And if it's bothering you, you need to stop and just take a rest, take a break. That's pretty much with everything. And you know, there's been times where I'm training for a particular event. I'll work out for maybe 15 minutes. Maybe I'll get a little tired. I'll rest up, and then I'll go right back at it. But you know your limits. Talk to your doctors. Talk to your trainers. Make sure they know that you have a fistula, a graft, whatever it is, and make sure that you pay particular close attention to it. But yeah, the short answer is yes. You can absolutely train. You can train hard. Just listen to your body.
Thanks. And Wilson, Jennifer, as a personal trainer, you have been advising some of LEP participants. What are your recommendations on this question?
I definitely agree with Wilson on that. And I also think if you've gotten the approval from your doctor, once they know that you're going to go through your exercise and you have gotten the permission, there are ways around it, not a ways around it, but if you're going to do, let's say, use dumbbells, bicep curls, things of that nature, maybe you don't use as heavy a weight on that particular arm, or you do an alternative modified exercise to do that, to do something on that particular arm that has a fistula. So again, yes, I agree with Wilson. You can exercise. There's modifications, and there's ways to do hard exercises, good exercises, and to get your exercises in.
One thing I would recommend, highly recommend, if you are on dialysis and you are planning on training, is to get a trainer, to get a professional that knows what they're doing, that can help you out. Somebody like Jen would be able to tell you exactly what you could do without hurting yourself. Don't try to attempt things on your own. That's never a good thing.
I agree with that one, Wilson, too.
Very cool. Okay, so the next one is, I'm on dialysis and I'm planning to travel. What do I need to do? Wilson, you've been traveling last year for a couple weeks. Can you share with us some of the tips?
Depending on depending on what type of dialysis you have, I go to in-clinic hemo. So every clinic has a social worker, and whenever we travel, it's just like your diet, it's just like your exercise. You got to plan it out. So you got to know in advance where you're going, what city you're going to be going. Typically, the social worker should be able to set you up with the most closest dialysis center for you to get that treatment. Now, if you are on PD or home hemo, if you're on home hemo, you can bring the machine with you. And I believe that if you tell the company that supplies all the necessary things that you need for dialysis, you tell them where you're traveling ahead in advance, they will send it there within the continental United States. If you're doing PD, same thing. If you order your supplies, it will ship it to wherever you are going to be. I recently also had a friend in Canada who's on dialysis, who's traveled internationally to Japan and some other places. And prior to traveling, he had already set up with local dialysis units around wherever he was traveling, and set his appointments so that he would be able to get his dialysis during those times.
Great. Thanks so much for advice. So our next question is about how will dialysis affect my intimate and romantic relations?
So
you, I suppose.
All right. I could tell we're all adults here, but you know, in the beginning when I first started dialysis, it was I didn't have I didn't have the sex drive or anything like that. But and you might find that when you first start dialysis, you know, your body's going through a lot of changes. But I will tell you that as I started working out and started exercising, started making the transformation, that I did get a lot stronger, and you know, all of that came back. So as far as being intimate, you can definitely be intimate, and maybe it's the exercise that has to do a lot with it. Maybe Jen, maybe you can touch on that a little bit more. Maybe something to do, chemicals. I have no idea, but the workouts definitely did help.
Well, that's exactly what happens. Is you get your endorphins, and everybody can, you know, all of us here know the behind the scenes of that. So by feeling stronger, that's the one thing, right? So you feel more confident about yourself. Yep. As you gain that confidence, things start to happen. And so again, yes, once you start exercising, everything starts to feel better. Your brain, your body, everything about you starts to feel better. So you gain that confidence. So it's all related. And even with the exercise, eating better. If you can eat better, exercise, all of it comes full circle around to make you feel better, more confident about yourself, and then that all comes into play, and you can be with others and enjoy life.
Great, awesome. What are the healthy protein bars for ESRD diet? Mathea, maybe you can help us with this question.
So you're going to want to look again at the ingredients, and you want to find the ones that have lower sodium. You want to compare for added phosphorus. Some labels also have potassium amounts on there if you're concerned about that. But you would just need to look in those, I believe, like the Luna bars, and I'm trying to think. I have a post on my website, but I can't remember, so I can share that with Natalia later. But really, it's just a matter of looking at it, reading the label, and I think protein bars, you can make some from scratch. You can find recipes, but you also, I think they're great to carry along with you to have snacks during dialysis and that type of thing, because you do need the added protein. So you really just want to look at the label and look for that added phosphorus. Check if it has potassium on there again, and low sodium for sure.
Thanks. Yeah. How about Cliff Bar? I've heard some patients.
I think it just depends.
Just depends.
It depends on the bar and what it's made from. You know, some of them have like dates and cherries, and so it just depends, because they may have more potassium or more sodium, one or the other. But I think if you take the time to read the label, you start to, you know, identify, yes, this has added phosphorus or it doesn't, those types of things, you'll start to see a trend either with a brand or that certain brands don't seem to have additives and that type of thing.
Right. Wilson, do you have any feedback on protein bars?
Yeah, well, not particularly protein bars, but if you are looking to for higher protein intake, maybe some type of supplements. What I found to be I used to get in trouble for taking whey protein or some of the other proteins because of the workouts, but one particular protein seemed to keep my labs all in order. It's a pure egg white protein powder from I believe it's from Trader Joe's, and it's 100% pure egg white protein. And I use that to I put that in a little bit of water and shake it up, and I'll just drink it, and that keeps my labs okay while giving me the protein intake I need. But as far as protein bars, for the most part, a lot of it I think is full of junk.
Mm-hmm.
Personally. that I've seen.
Yeah. So if you can send us the name of the brand that seems working for you,
Yeah.
and not impacting your labs, will be great, and we can share. And same, Mathea, if you have any recommendations. One thing to mention, just having such a brilliant people on LEP program have been such a pleasure. So I want to thank all of you dedicating your time, expertise, and also passion. We're certainly looking forward to bring the LEP to the larger scale platform and impacting lives of patients across the country. So hopefully we'll be able to catch up on the next cohort very soon, in a month or so. So enjoy your summer, get more energy, and let's create something amazing in a very soon future.